Hello and welcome to the second episode of Northwest Knitting. My name is Kathy and I live in Oregon with my husband Dennis, and I'm here to talk to you about the knitting projects I'm working on and have finished, and also my passion for yarn and my desire to move towards more sustainable yarn choices. So I think I talked to you last time how I'm looking for more lightly processed yarns, and I think aesthetically I'm more interested in the crunchier yarns, and I love knowing the breed the sheep comes from. But I have a lot of yarn here in my wool pantry. Thank you, Kat of Heather and Hops. And actually, I think the clothes you own are the most environmentally sensible. You use up what you have. And I think that's true for the wool pantry as well, your stash. So I have been working on trying to clean that up some of the time, and then also occasionally buying new yarns for a new project. So I really wanted to make the sweater I'm wearing is the Ultimate Lazy Cardigan by Ailbíona McLochlainn, and I really wanted to make this sweater, and I was struggling to find something, and I really didn't want to buy new yarn because of the reasons I just stated. So I found some yarn in my stash. I had a lot of I don't know if it's Berroco or Berroco. Never have a chance to say it. But it's called Ginkgo. So that's this yarn right here. And this is a yarn that really appealed to me years ago. It is a combination of silk and wool, about half and half. And it is very, very soft. It just has no structure whatsoever. Not superwash though, and silk's probably not too bad as a fiber to use. So I have a lot of this. I've bought a lot of yarn. I've tried to buy sweater quantities of yarn more often instead of having one skein here, one skein there. So I actually have a lot of this yarn. In fact, after I made this sweater, I ended up with at least 3 more balls of this. So it's something like 134 yards. I think, yeah, 134 yards, 122 meters, and I had a lot of it. But when I did my swatch, I wasn't sure if it, I was a little worried about pilling or just, it had sort of this interesting look to it. I think the silk makes it so shiny, and I wasn't caring for it as much. But then I saw on Woolly Thistle a lot of this mohair here. So what I ended up using was these two together to make this fabric right here. So, and the mohair is Rauma Plum. So the plum is the name of the not the brand, the line, I guess, and not the color. And I thought it was all mohair, and I didn't read very carefully, and it's about 30% nylon. So it's Super Kid mohair 70% and polyamide 30%, which is nylon. And I've been trying not to buy nylon, but the color is just fantastic. and I don't know Norwegian. I think they say the color is number 114. So anyway, if you look on there, they've got some gorgeous pictures of mohair matched with Rauma Finull. And this one just grabbed me. I love this color. So anyway, great combo in the end, although I probably wouldn't have picked it now. So anyway, let me tell you about the pattern. While I've had my reservations about the yarn, the pattern is fabulous, and there are so many reasons why you should make one for yourself. Even though I was using a very fluffy yarn, you can really see the lines of the twisted ribs. So the reason she calls it the Ultimate Lazy Cardigan, or TULC, T-U-L-C, is because it has an integrated button band here, which means that you don't have to pick up and knit the button band on later. Now, I don't mind so much picking up the button band, but really when you finish, when you get to the bottom and the button band is done, then you're finished and you have nothing left to do except a few little ends. So I really liked the way the band worked. So the way I've worked some integrated bands before, but usually just on baby clothes. And so what sometimes I found on those that it just seemed a little floppy and maybe not enough support, but it's for a baby, and so maybe the structure is not that big a deal. But of course for an adult, and hopefully I'll wear this for a long time, give it a lot of use, but the way she deals with the band is to do a twisted rib stitch, and it's just really nice how you go along. I'll let you buy it and see how she does it, but basically it is a twisted rib. It just the edge turns out really great. If you see any little gaping over here, it's because this fabric is so soft. It doesn't have much oomph to it, and I'm going more for yarns with more structure to them really than this most of the time, unless it's alpaca, and then that's a whole other deal. But for wool, I'm really looking for some of the crunchy ones. Let me tell you there are a couple things about this that I really, really liked. I like how pronounced the band looks even with my fluff. I think you can see this contiguous sleeve. It's there, and then it goes down the back, maybe on this side. It's hard because when you start using these, certain colors just don't show the light that much, but here's the line going down. So I had never done a contiguous sleeve before, and there were times when I'm knitting along going, oh my gosh, what's happening? What's going on? I don't know. I don't understand this, but there's really nothing to figure out. You just follow the directions, and it comes out with this real nice shoulder. I'm small in the shoulders. It really fits me nicely, but I think the models all are much broader in the shoulders, and it looks great on them too. So great sleeves, but the other thing is Ailbíona gives you so many choices in this pattern that it can really be anything you want. She has you can do it for DK weight, which mine was more down at the lower end. Aran weight, she tells you how to change the gauge for that. She tells you how to change the gauge if you're a half size. She has numerous choices for the bodice. So you could do a straight bodice, an A-line bodice, and within A-line you could have a moderate A-line, or you could have a dramatic A-line. I went for a moderate. You could do a cropped, tapered bodice, and she tells you how to do it, or an hourglass bodice. So really, look no further, my friends, because this is just everything you need. So I use buttons from Textile Garden. Now I'm really feeling like I'm trying to buy more local for environmental reasons, and also because I like to, I think it builds community to buy as local as you can. But particularly during the pandemic, I did a lot more online shopping, and my button bands are from Textile Garden, which I love. I think she's based in England, and she just has some gorgeous buttons. These aren't particularly unusual, but they work really nicely for this sweater. See that? That's the yarn. It just is weird. Okay, and so let me show you how it fits here. So when I blocked this, before I did, it was really fitting. I just didn't think it was going to drape, and I was afraid it was going to cinch in at the hips, which is my bane of my existence. And when I blocked it, look how drapey. I'm sure that's the silk. Or maybe it's, they don't say what kind of wool is mixed in. Maybe it's merino, but very, very drapey. I'm super happy with the outcome. And, but it's not what I expected based on my swatch. So once again, I'm surprised. I'm not gonna give up on swatching. I usually do swatch for a sweater, but my gauge was on, but it just didn't. I'm surprised at how drapey it is, and also I think it's a little longer than I expected. I need to educate myself more about silk. I didn't think silk did that, but maybe I'm confusing it with a different fiber, so I need to find out more about that. So overall, I am just very, very pleased with this cardigan, and I would like very much to make it again. And if I don't get distracted by newer things or many, many old, I don't have a queue on Ravelry, but I have a long list of favorites. So we'll see, but I'd love to make this in a, something just maybe like Tuca wool DK. That would be really nice. I tend not to make too many of the heavier sweaters, although I did one this year, because our climate tends to be a little bit more on the moderate side. So it does get cold. In fact, tomorrow it's supposed to go all the way down to 16, which is very, very cold for us. But you know, if you want to wear a cardigan inside, for me, the heavier weights don't work as well. And I have a couple of those already. So anyway, I'm inclined to go lighter. This is a sweater I could, because of the silk mohair combo, I could wear it over a t-shirt in the summer. So, okay, let me pause for a minute here, and I'll tell you about, I'm wearing a little shirt under this. Okay, so I will just be taking this off briefly because if I have my heater on, I am in my, what I'm in is a 10 by 12 Tough Shed, TUFF, and it was on the property when we bought the house 10 years ago. And it was a garden shed, and I was working out of my house I did that for about 20 years. I should have written a book about it, so it would have been ready for COVID. So when we moved in, we didn't really have enough room in the house for me to have an office, and so we made this into an office. So we put in we had it sheetrocked and had windows put in, and French doors, and set the Wi-Fi out here. And so I used it as an office and until I retired about 3 years ago. Then it sat for a couple years, and I came in here, but it had a big desk and all my monitors. I had 2 big, huge monitors. And so it took me quite a while to make that shift, post-retirement shift, added on to COVID weirdness. But I finally got a cabinet for my yarn, and so I'm out here, but it has just one little tiny heater and it can get chilly. So let's see. So what this one is, whoops, it's my little, this one is a pattern by Isabell Kraemer. It is not new. I made this, I think I've worn it now for 2 summers. So I wanted to show you though, because I'm thinking about summer, making 1 or 2 summer knits. It's always nice to add to the summer clothing. That's where actually I need more than winter clothes right now. This is a pattern by called Edie by Isabell Kraemer, and I'm sure you've heard of her, but if you haven't, you should really check her out. She has some really lovely patterns. They're a joy to knit. She has many interesting little details. And actually, I've thought about going through some of my, I have a pattern that I did of hers that I loved how she wrote the pattern. The yarn I used didn't really work very well with it. And the whole time I was knitting it, I was wishing I was using a different yarn because I'd like to try some of those details again. But usually like around the button band and the neck. So this one I knit out of, the yarn's called Hempathy, and everything I refer to here I'll put in the show notes, and so you just click on show more and it takes you to all of my notes, Ravelry links and so forth. So I used Hempathy Prince, it's called. It is a combination of cotton, hemp, and viscose, which I believe is rayon. So it is a plant fiber. Viscose actually uses maybe a little more energy in the processing. I should educate myself about that one. I suspect that the viscose is what makes the other 2 plant fibers work as nicely and drape as nicely as they do. It's a very straightforward pattern, but I had never worked with a plant fiber before. And I got down to about here several times, ripped it up, back down, because I just couldn't resign myself to what my stitches looked like. They just looked so wonky. Every little bit of unevenness showed up. So finally, I just realized it's not wool, and I'm just gonna go ahead. So, and when this yarn is blocked, it's hard to say it blooms when it's a plant fiber, but it really does spread out and it drapes beautifully. Okay, so I'll show you. It has one detail here. Hopefully you can see this textured detail. One modification I made is I think she starts the texture a little higher, and I decided that I would do it on more towards the under my breasts rather than right across them. And the texture goes all the way to the bottom. And this was another one that really stretched, and as I wear it, it gets drapier and drapier. So you can see all that little um, print there. Really a nice yarn, and I can't say I enjoy wearing. I do enjoy wearing it. I don't enjoy knitting with it all that much, but the outcome is fabulous, and I think I feel the same way about linen, which I haven't used all that much, but I did do a linen tank top for my daughter either last summer or the summer before, and ooh, it was really hard for me to use the linen. So maybe blends are what we should be looking for, or you know, it's a t-shirt's not that much knitting, so but the outcome's fabulous. So I'm going to put this sweater back on because, as predicted, it is chilly in here. Okay, well, it looks like I have more time to talk to you. I could talk all day, actually, but I don't think that would be a very pleasant podcast for you to listen to. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to people around the world. Canada, for you know, is probably the closest I get to me. I watch Woolly Thistle and Andrea Mowry. I have lots of women in Scandinavia and in England and Scotland, and Fruity Knitting, of course. But when I talk more about them, I'll put them in the show notes. But it has just been a godsend for me during the pandemic, particularly, and also because I'm interested in some things that it's just great to hear about yarns and just ways of living and practicing the craft that is different from what my experience might be. I have a wonderful group of knitters that I discovered way before COVID. And now we were meeting in person for, you know, off and on, depending on, we felt very optimistic last summer after we got vaccinated and we were meeting in person again. But now we're on Zoom, and they've just kept me sane. It's been fabulous to know I have that to look forward to on Wednesday afternoons. So I'm on a different path in my search for toothy, crunchy yarn, but I just love seeing what they do, and they're great. Also, I might have given the impression last time that I didn't have a local yarn store. We have lost 2 stores here, and the store in Roseburg is closed, and there was one in Brownsville, which was close to me, that closed. There's no yarn store in Corvallis anymore. I'm really grateful that we still have one yarn store, and it's a really nice yarn store. I'm often looking for things that are a little bit different, but I'm sure that's true for every single person who has a local yarn store. And also, I have a lot of stash right now, so I'm not really buying much yarn. Although I've heard about this yarn called Nutidin from, I'm not sure where. It's Europe somewhere, and it just sounds fantastic. So if I had a chance to get that very easily, I would do it. But anyway, I do try and buy local when I can. But I think most people, most knitters are really looking for softer yarns. So I'm on a slightly different path. You probably I don't know if you've noticed, but if you're familiar with Brooklyn tweed, it's up in Portland, which is only 2 hours away from me. But for me to buy it, I'd have to go to Ashland, which is 3 hours south, or I understand that there's some yarn stores in Portland that do have it. But it might be as hard for me to find Brooklyn tweed as it is for you, wherever you're watching. Okay, so let me tell you just an update on my striped sweater. I was telling you about this, Andrea Mowry's striped sweater. It's my second one. And I'm using Ulcentrum for the 2 gray colors and Rauma Finull for the blue. It's kind of a petrol blue there. Bluish, almost bluish green, really. And last time I was telling you I had not started the collar. I just plunged in on the body of the sweater so I could do the neck later. Well, I decided in order to try it on, I had to put the neck on there. And I did. When I have it on, it's not too bad, but I think it's you can see it's really flopping over there. And I think I'm probably going to have to go back in, decrease some stitches, or really go down to a very tiny gauge or tiny needle. But I put the neck on so I could try it, and now I'm agonizing about the length and decided that I would start on the sleeves first. So I think I can tell about how the fit is better once I've done the sleeves, and then I'll decide how to finish it off, whether I'll follow the pattern instructions or add more. I've added quite a few stitches along the as I've gone down the body. I took a class recently called Beginning Sweater Modification by Melissa of Knitting the Stash, which was really great. If you've needed help with sweater modification, that would be a great one. And one of the things she suggested is that, that you don't have to add the stitches on the side, that it might make more sense to add them just as you're going down, spacing them down the middle and down the middle of the back, like 2 on either side. And so I did that with the striped sweater. First time I've done it, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, I'm loving the yarn I'm using for the striped sweater. The Ulcentrum is definitely the most toothy yarn I've ever used. And at first I thought, oh, Kathy, you crazy person, you're going down this path of rustic yarn and maybe you've lost your mind. But it's so weird. It's like it's not soft, but it really has just a wonderful stretch to it and everything. So I'm excited to see what happens when I block it. That's been really fun. So the Ulcentrum is from Sweden, and the grays, I believe, are from Gotland, which is very exciting to me as an avid watcher of Sophia on Kammebornia podcast. So I like it, and I've liked Rauma, which I've used in the past. So I have one more work in progress. So gift knitting is an interesting thing. I'm interested in creating a sustainable wardrobe for myself. I haven't bought a new sweater for 3 or 4 years. because I need to spend the money on yarn mostly. But also I'm looking to have, I'm looking to not participate very much in the fast fashion industry. I think knitting sort of disrupts that whole thing a little bit, and that would be all to the good, because it's a huge environmental disaster, basically. So I'm really interested in knitting clothes for myself. I do love it when I knit for somebody else, and it works out. But okay, it's partly the process. If I'm knitting, let's say I started this sweater, I didn't feel happy with the yarn. Let's say I didn't feel happy with the pattern. Maybe instead of loving this pattern, I didn't. I hated it. Maybe, there's all kinds of things that could go wrong. Maybe I decided it wasn't what I needed at the time. I would be fine with ripping it out. I do not feel like my whips have any special power over me just because I've knit on them. I actually have very few hanging around. I have a couple, but not too many, and I just might rip out the whole thing and do something completely different. So the problem is when you're knitting a gift for somebody, particularly if you've told them about it, but also you just feel like you've kind of made a commitment. Maybe you've bought yarn you wouldn't buy, and it feels different. I feel like I don't have as much just sort of freedom with it. But my husband watches me knit all the time. He's a huge supporter. And I haven't knit very much. I've knit him a shawl. I've knit him maybe 3 hats. A number of years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I knit him a vest, the Simple Pie vest from Peace Fleece. And that was really fun to knit for a number of reasons, but it ended up with the arm. It was probably one of the first garments I knit. I'm not even sure if I had knit a sweater for myself when I did that one. And the armhole was way low. He doesn't wear it all that much. I might tear it out sometime and use the yarn for something else. But anyway, I have been meaning to knit something for him. I would love to. I could replace one of his old man cardigans, so that's been on my mind. But the other thing, I saw a vest pattern, and he looked at it with me. He really liked it, and we decided that I would go ahead and do it. So the pattern is Emsworth, again by Isabell Kraemer, and I'm using Rauma Finull, and it's got, okay, I think I've held it up to the camera before. I think it's hard to see the pattern. I think you're gonna see it just as well from back here. Let me try. I'll move a little closer. So I don't know, you might look at my link to the pattern. When we looked at it, we didn't think it was terribly lacy. I mean, when you see back here, you don't think, ooh, that's a lacy panel. The panel also goes in the back. I think it's really nice. It's super fun. It's just, there's no cabling. It's just a regular lace mixing pearls and knits and yarn overs and knit 2 together. I steam blocked the top, maybe this first bit here, because I wanted him to look at it and to be sure that he was okay with the laciness. And he's actually a very broad-minded person, and he liked it. So that part is good. But I've held it up to him, and it's gonna have he's way bigger than me. I think it's too small. I have my gauge. I'm just wondering, I haven't knit successfully for a man yet. I wonder if he's got to be a different shape than, let's say, a woman of the same size, right? I mean, maybe it's not all about gender. Who knows? He's just got pretty straight across shoulders, and it just doesn't, I feel uncertain about it. So right now this pattern is in timeout while I do some measuring, and I try and figure out if I need to rip it out. I will do it. As I've told you, I will rip out. That's why I don't have the volume of finished objects that some people do. If it's not gonna feel right, I don't stay the course. Life is too short. I'm old enough, I know I only have so many sweaters, so many books in my life. A finite amount exists. It's true for all of you, but you get more aware of it as you get older. So anyway, I love the yarn, love the pattern. The chart is fun, but I'm not sure it's right. So we're going to reassess that. One thing I will add is that when I've made things from Rauma Finull before, and when I steam, I didn't notice it. I've washed them in a nice soak, and I haven't noticed it smelling particularly sheepy. But when I steam blocked this, I felt like the sheep that wore this wool had walked into the room. It was wonderful for me, thrilling, but you might try out that fun surprise. That was great. Okay, so those are 2 whips. They're not the only ones, but I find, for me, one of the hardest things about this podcast is to show you whips and feel like I've made a commitment, almost the way I was knitting a gift item. So that's kind of funny. But I think you can handle it if I rip out a whip. I'll always give you a good reason for it. Okay, let me tell you what else I was thinking of. One thing, I didn't mention this so much. I don't think I did at all. I'm worrying about my light here. It's tricky to find the time of day to be in here. I'm facing my French doors. The room ends just beyond the camera. But there are times when the light shifts. There we go. I hope that's okay. I think I'm back right where I started. Okay, well, one of my passions before I became so obsessed with knitting is that I used to just read all the time. And I still do read quite a lot. So I was imagining that during these podcasts, that is what I would share with you as my extra. So for now, I'm finished with the knitting. And if you just want to last for a little bit longer, I will talk to you briefly about a book I've been reading. So one of the things since COVID, I have Oh, I've had my ups and downs like lots of people, and at times I just haven't had it in me to read books that were very edgy or um, dark. The times are dark. I know it's a privilege for me to close out some of the darkness and look at the pretty knitting pictures, but sometimes I've just had to do it for my sanity. Um, and so what I have found is that I have, for the first time in a long time, I've been rereading books. I used to always reread some I usually would reread a Jane Austen once a year, or um, various books. I have a few that I love. Elizabeth Strout is somebody I really like. But I have been rereading some of my books recently, and I really have enjoyed them almost more than I did before. They've really been good experiences. So anyway, okay, now the light's crazy, so I'm going to stop. Okay, I got rid of that little bit there. So anyway, a book that I've been starting to reread recently is called Braiding Sweetgrass. The subtitle is Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants by Robin Wall Kimmerer. She's got a PhD. I think it's in ethnobotany, but I'm not positive. And she's an enrolled member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation. I first heard of this book from, I think, from Nicole at the Gentle Knitter podcast. So thanks, Nicole. But then I heard it in many other places, and I found out that Kimmerer wrote another book called Gathering Moss, which was and she was consulted by Elizabeth Gilbert when she was writing her novel, The Signature of All Things, which is a book I really enjoyed. It's about a contemporary of Darwin, a female contemporary, and it's just a very enjoyable book. The protagonist ends up researching moss as her study of evolution. Anyway, this book, I really love it. It's one of my favorite books of 2020. Even I really don't read a lot of nonfiction. I love story, and I find that I just can't stay engaged. I read nonfiction, I read books about nature, and I have a hard time just staying fully engaged. I think it's beautiful. I love it. Maybe I mark a passage, but somehow I might not ever finish the book. And that was not true for me for this book. So it's almost like she's telling stories about plants, basically. And she's talking about plants and nature in relation to humans, and from the standpoint of indigenous people on this continent. I really highly recommend it. It's a different way of looking at things, which we could all use, and it's very beautiful. So it's a kind of book you could actually pick up almost, you could just start a new chapter, and you'd get a lot out of it. So anyway, I highly recommend that. And I also highly recommend The Signature of All Things. So I could talk all day, as I said before, but I think I'm going to stop for now and get this posted. I'm going to try to post a number of more soon. I tried for a long time to do this podcasting. I had so much difficulty with the technical aspects and tried so many different things. While I was doing it, I actually filmed myself wearing different things. So I actually have quite a few stories of some knits that I finished, let's say in the last 6 months, 6 to 8 months maybe. So I think I'll get those out so that if people come notice my channel, they'll see there's a little bit more there. And then I don't know if I can pick up the pace or keep up that pace or not. I'm just trying this out. I think I can. There's so much to learn about knitting, the craft, and also about fiber. So I hope you'll stay with me. If you've enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, if you can find the subscribe button, which I don't know that I have one, but if I have one, please subscribe and tell your friends. So thanks so much. Bye-bye.